But could you welcome now, Tony Lyndsay, who's going to talk to us about the company itself. And after that, I'm going to open it up for questions to Tony.
So if I pause now, Vern, do you think are there other things that you would like me to cover?
If you can hear me. Tony, let's take it in bites.
Yeah.
That's the overview. If I could just clarify one thing you said at the start, that you are developing things for us.
I'm sorry.
You're not developing. Could you just explain firstly the flexibility in the system? You're not creating new stuff for us. Talk about our complexity stretching your flexibility.
Thank you. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So Vega is a configurable tool. One of the things that we said when we sat down to design it is, if you're designing something from scratch, how would you design the perfect engagement platform? What would it entail? Well, it would entail configuration. It would entail process awareness. It would entail a number of different things that make a tool fit for purpose. But the most important one is configuring and extending the tool around the model. So a person's name and address, or multiple addresses and so on, that's straightforward. But actually describing what the person does in the organization, how they do it, what their availability is, what their likes and dislikes are, what their requirements are, what health and safety, and so on, you then start to configure what we call a meta language about that each individual. And it's getting your language correct that will then allow Vega to reflect your particular unique mission back to you in usable ways. The whole secret is to make it as few clicks, 1, 2, 3 clicks, to get data that you want. If you're a busy chair, and you need to send an email, you don't want to have a university degree in order to be able to do it. You want it to do what you want it to speak to you in your language, and you want to have it reflect your cultural practice. And that is what we're configuring.
And for some we as a project team were quite keen to ensure that any of this development didn't mean that we were a standalone piece of software. So any upgrades and so on in the way your system works, we are just part of the standard product. It's just that the flexibility in the product allows it to be configured, primarily to our needs.
That's right, and it really is down to semantics and language. You need to see familiar language. You need to be able to feel that you can control the process, and that really is, as I said, it's a language issue as much as anything.
Yeah. And for the audience here, this has been terribly important for us as a project team, and I've mentioned it once or twice last night briefly and this morning again. We've had to do a lot of work looking at who we are, and what we do, really to get down and understand the processes, understand what we're doing, so that this configuration that we're talking about, can be accomplished for us. But can I just open up generally? Has anyone here got any questions for Tony at this stage? Can we have a microphone running around, please? Yeah, it's coming. Go.
Thank you. God forbid, but what if you were to drop out of the picture?
Oh, that's a very good question. Thank you. I am surrounded by a wonderful and daily inspiring team. I am very happy to have founded, and very pleased that we, a small team, took the chance and plunged into developing Vega. But Vega is not mine anymore. Vega belongs to a team, and it belongs to the clients that use it throughout Australia and New Zealand. I play an emeritus role, and I really enjoy that. I speak, I write, I advise. I still keep very close contact with the sector, with not-for-profits of all forms, and I pass that knowledge and insight on if I can. But Vega is, much bigger than me. But thank you.
Yeah. It's a good question and we spent a lot of time on that as a project team before a decision was made, and it's that trade-offs that we were making. There's a whole bunch of trade-offs that we made. It was on that slide before. Against the price, against a whole range of things. Yes, there is a risk. It's a risk with a small company. But that is a risk that we've been chosen to go with. Yes, another question.
Tony, what about if there is a problem with Vega and it breaks down? How quick is the turnaround time to get it fixed?
Okay, that's a great question. Thank you. First of all, Vega works very hard to ensure continuity. And to say we have in excess of 99.99% availability, we can't claim to have 100% availability because there can be an unplanned event. But in the last 3 years, I cannot think of one unplanned event. And the Azure platform is just technology these days. It's just wonderful. In the old days, you had a building and you had a server bank in there, and if power supply or other issues or telecoms or other issues, you could lose your server. But with a platform like Azure, you have instant replication and instant availability. So the platform is there. The platform is like the internet. Now, if you have a local issue with internet where you lose your local internet, then that will be a Telstra or a other issue. It won't be Vega or Azure, which will continue to be available. And if something bad happened and Vega was not available to you, there is a stepped process to instantly respond and to start remedying. And it's part of the contract. It's part of the terms of agreement with Kairos that we respond within 30 minutes. We respond within, depending upon the level and severity. But again, and I don't want to, tempt fate, but nevertheless, we work very hard and we only use best of breed to ensure you have complete security, just like you would have with your electricity or your phone or any other service.
Yeah. One more.
Hope I'm not moving ahead of where we're going, but how is this integrating with our previous system, which...
I'll take that one, Tony. Yep.
Sure.
It's not formally integrating, as a system, but the previous system database and all the data that was collected in that database, has been recovered from that database. Let me just back off a bit, just on the database. And sorry, Tony, I don't want to get for the thing we're having tomorrow, but just bear with me for a moment. Bruce has collected all the data that we already had. Thank you for those regions who sent in their own back data, from within the regions. It has all been collected, and all of that data is now in the Vega database. The systems are completely different, two different suppliers. And when we go live with this one, the other one, we'll leave the other one. They've been aware of that. We have another question.
Just in terms of training for the use of Vega, the previous system took a weekend of training, and I think still a lot of us were not all that good at using it. What's the process of training with Vega?
Would you like me to answer, Vern?
Yes, please, Tony. Tony, just before you do, I'll just say, that was a long time ago, when we did that. But yeah, I've got the question. Yes, yeah. I'm just helping Tony a bit. Sorry, it wasn't a criticism. Yes, Tony.
So training and leaving people feeling empowered and able to use a tool that you would like them to use and like them to benefit from is critical to the success of a project. And therefore, we make ourselves freely available to train trainers within Kairos. Now, if you asked us to, we would provide training sessions as well on a more generalized basis. But the most important thing is for us to have a project team that really understands Vega, and then they provide training in specific tasks. But we've tried to make Vega as intuitive as possible. And certainly without disparaging any other supplier in the market, the previous database was not the most intuitive, easy-to-use platform that anyone ever purchased. And we have put a lot of work into making Vega more intuitive and making it more process and sector aware so that you can use it easily. And there's also inbuilt help. There's a big knowledge base behind it. There's an inline application help pop-up that allows you to ask questions. And of course, then there's always the help desk, which, however we manage that.
Yep. Thanks, Tony. We will be getting more into that, tomorrow. I'll just take Tony, just excuse me for a moment. I'll just do another elaboration.
Yep.
Some time ago, we sought from amongst the regions likely users within the regions to help us understand the processes in the regions. We call them our champions. Is there anyone here who's one of our champions and contributed to that? There's 1, 2, 3, and there's others. I think there's 16 people we've recruited, out there in the regions who use the processes that we're going to be talking about. They're our champions. More recently, we put out a call for people who might be interested in being trainers, a little bit like the Ezra group and so on. We're calling them, I think you like this, Tony, our Vega-mites. We've had a couple of meetings with our Vega-mites who are a bit more on the technical side and keen to take part in the training, understand the training. So we've got 2 teams out there in the regions, one lot who are experienced in Kairos, particularly the processes within Kairos, our champions. And when we get to the next stage, which is not all that far away, we'll be bringing those Vega-mites together to do the initial training that Tony's just been talking about. So we're preparing the ground for that particular phase when we get to it.
Yes.
Any other? There may well be more questions. I'll come to it. May well be more questions tomorrow, but we're happy to take them now. Down here, Bruce.
Have you got a timeline, like for when each stage is going to happen?
Yeah, that is a very good question. Tony, I'll go first. You can follow on from that. We did initially set out a timeline, which, as we better understood the nature of the relationship that we're building, and that's why I call it small complex meets small flexible. And we started to understand more sort of the stretch elements in that complex meets flexible. We adopted the position then on both sides that it's far better to go slower and get it done right than it is to set a timetable and just push on through a timetable. And both ourselves and Vega are working on that basis. So we want to keep it going. We haven't got money forever to get this thing done. We're aware of that. But equally, we need to be as precise about what our needs are in describing our processes, as Tony is with his system. And we've committed ourselves now for this process that we have to get our work done as to exactly what it is that we're doing. Now, we're in that phase of doing that now. The first phase is primarily get all the data in, get all the data tested. And we're almost at the end now of that major first phase of getting all the data's tested. That's slipping over into tomorrow, and Chris is going to be talking about showing the data there. So if you want to go deeper into that side, we'll do that tomorrow. But we've adopted the approach. We're not driving hard like a corporate would to get it done within the time frame. The most important thing is getting it done properly to achieve the goals that Tony said and I have. Do you want to add anything to that, Tony?
I would just say that what we're seeking to do is find areas where we'll get the maximum benefit from having a configured, implemented tool, and then the journey will continue as we add more and more functionality. But let's see what makes the biggest contribution soon, and look for that, imminently, as soon as possible. But I'm driven by Bruce and Chris and Sarah and Vern. So, absolutely, let's see some benefit.
Yeah, and that priority, which I've already alluded, is help to the regions. Specific. There's a whole host of things like we'll be sort of helping out and improving this thing for the next decade. And we see it as that sort of exercise for us. But the primary thing that we're looking to do is to get it up and running with support for the regions to make things easier, simpler, at that level. That's what our strategy is. Yeah.
I just had a question.
It'll come back as soon as you sit down. Okay. Oh yes, I told you it would come back when you sat down.
Holy Spirit. Will the Vega database system be able to produce quantifiable or quantitative results for the Kairos Inside programs or the KO, the Torch programs, as a way of producing statistics to represent that back to other said parties or interested parties?
Yeah. I'll just do a precursor again, Tony. Yep. And you can talk about the system. It will produce what we design it to produce. One of the things, though, that I'm keen to get into it, is the measurement, not just of programs, as I've mentioned a number of times, how many people are hearing the message that we are called to give. And that means we'll have to start collecting data about how many people attended a swap or a journey, how many people graduated from a program. Now that's a piece of data we don't have at the moment, and yet that is our major goal in terms of quantitative measurement of how successful we are as an organisation. Is not how many programs. We could run a lot. We could double the number of programs if we did it for only half the number of participants. We haven't achieved anything. So there's issues for us to define about what are the measurements of success for a ministry, that we need, and then it's over to you, Tony, as to what the system can produce.
Indeed. So I mean, Vega, like computer systems in general, is very good at counting things, and in fact, you touch on the important issue that we have just been discussing, which is the steady step-by-step approach we're taking to get if you get the transaction right, you can count it. If you get the transaction level data meaningful and correct, then you can count easily and produce statistics and produce reports. And Vega is very good at summarizing and producing reports. Equally, one of the really important areas is social impact. And I think that's another way of what Vern was alluding to. What is the impact of these programs and so on? So we're very interested in working with you to improve social impact reporting and analytics back to you as an organization. And again, designing the right data to achieve that for you.
I'm coming again. And that's really important for the future of the ministry, because our major donors, who are looking to attract larger donors, no large donors ever asked me how many programs we've run. They want to know how many people, the Christian ones want to know how many people heard the message. That's all we get asked. And that's why we've got to start building that in to the record keeping. And this is quite capable, and we're planning for that to be added into what we're doing. Bruce, there's another question here.
With the reports, are they going to be built into the system, or are we going to get a suite of reports pre-made, or are we able to build them as we go?
Yeah. Tony?
You can absolutely build it. That entirely depends upon levels of access and internal security policies and other things. But you absolutely can go in and configure and build reports within Vega for yourself. Again, it could be that the organisation determines that there will be a standard set of reports provided, but there's equally an ability to configure completely new reports to meet particular needs. And
if you want to know the detail of how, hang around at the end of the day and have a talk with Chris, or Bruce, but we can also pick it up in the session tomorrow. Okay.